Nice try, Dalton. But I have the emails. I'll see you in court. That was the text that lit up my phone at 6:12 a.m. on a gray Tuesday in February, just as I was finishing my second cup of black coffee in my kitchen in Asheville, North Carolina. The sender? Miles Avon, my former head of business development, now fired. I read it twice. My thumb hovered over the screen, but I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? Good luck, you lying bastard? He wasn't bluffing. He genuinely believed he could turn this thing around. And that scared me more than the lawsuit he was threatening. My name is Dalton Reeve. I'm 53 years old, founder and CEO of Blue House Intelligence, a boutique data analytics firm I started out of a co-working space in Durham in 2012. No venture capital, no partners, just a laptop, a vision, and more coffee than a cardiologist would recommend. 12 years later, we had 2 offices, one in Charlotte, one in Atlanta, and 47 employees on payroll. We serviced regional banks, healthcare groups, mid-tier law firms, anyone who needed smarter ways to track, predict, and visualize data. We weren't flashy, but we were good, ethical, quietly profitable, and for a while I thought we were solid. I met Miles at a tech leadership conference in Indianapolis in 2019. He wasn't even supposed to be speaking, just filling in for someone last minute, but his presentation on client acquisition funnels was sharp. Sharp enough that I approached him during lunch and offered him a role. He moved to North Carolina 2 months later. He was 34, articulate, charming, and oddly old school in how he dressed. Tailored jackets, always pressed shirts, real watches, not smartwatches. But what stood out most was his discipline. First in, last out. Knew the numbers cold. Made people feel like he genuinely gave a damn. Clients loved him. I trusted him. So when he asked for more responsibility, access to our CRM systems, client analytics dashboards, even limited admin control on our prospecting servers, I said yes. I didn't know it then, but I was handing him the keys to the vault. I first noticed the weirdness in December. A longtime client out of Jacksonville, Orion Tech Logistics, abruptly ended their contract, no explanation. 2 weeks later, another client in Atlanta said they'd signed with a more agile competitor. The name they gave rang no bells. But I didn't panic. Clients come and go. Then our cloud security vendor flagged a series of data access attempts from an unregistered device. Not an external hack, but a logged-in user trying to pull bulk records from CRM backups. The user tag? Avon. I forwarded the report to Natalie, our systems engineer, and asked her to keep it quiet for now. No accusations, no confrontation. Just eyes open. That was 3 weeks ago. Last Friday, after Natalie's second audit confirmed the scope of the breach, I confronted Miles in my office. I had Gregory, our head of HR, sitting in. Standard protocol. Miles, I said, we've detected unauthorized access to client data, your login credentials. Do you want to explain before we proceed further? He didn't miss a beat. Unauthorized? Dalton, I think there's a mistake. I've been working remotely from my home machine. Maybe that's what triggered the alert. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a man who already had an exit plan. I told him we were placing him on administrative leave pending a full investigation. I asked for his laptop, his badge, and his access tokens. He didn't argue, didn't get loud, just smiled, handed everything over, and walked out like he was heading to lunch. Then came the message 3 days later before dawn. I have the emails. I'll see you in court. The words carried weight, because I wasn't just fighting a thief. I was about to fight someone smart enough to twist a narrative. And I had a gut feeling he wasn't finished with me yet. When I first started Blue House, I thought the biggest risks would come from outside cyber threats, market shifts, bad hires. I never thought the most dangerous person would be the one who knew our systems best and had keys to every client door. But here we were. By noon that same Tuesday, Gregory, our HR director, had looped in Mirasato, our in-house legal counsel. She'd been with us for 5 years, came from a litigation background, and didn't spook easily. This is going to get messy, she said after reading Miles's text. He's laying foundation for a retaliation claim. Do we have documentation? We do, I told her. Natalie's been logging the system activity. There's unusual access patterns going back 6 months. Some look like partial database exports. Nothing concrete yet, just metadata. Mira nodded. We'll need more than metadata. I know, I said. That's why I called in Evan. Evan Cole isn't on our website. He's a digital forensics consultant, ex-2D contractor, now working under the radar for mid-sized firms like mine who can't afford a breach but also can't afford to call the FBI. Yet, I'd used him once before when a former freelancer tried to extort us by threatening to leak internal process docs. Evan found the IP, traced the digital footprint, and shut it down within 72 hours. He's clinical, efficient, unimpressed by drama. I'll need full access to your cloud backups and CRM logs, he said that night over Zoom. And I'll need to know exactly what you think he took. Not just what he took, I said. I need to know who he sent it to. Evan raised an eyebrow. You think he's already flipped your clients? I think he's building his own shop, I said. He registered a domain last month. vectorintegrity.com. No site yet, but it's real. Same city, same services, same pitch. I think he's been courting our client list behind our backs. Evan sat back in his chair, the screen's glow sharpening the lines around his eyes. All right, he said. Let's see how deep this hole goes. Meanwhile, Miles wasn't hiding. That same week, I got an email from Dr. Camilla Harkness, a longtime client and director of strategy at Ethon Care Medical, one of our bigger healthcare analytics accounts. Subject: confidential concern. Dalton, I'm writing to clarify something Miles mentioned during a lunch meeting last week. He said he was leaving Blue House for ethical reasons related to how certain client data was being used. He implied there were irregularities in our dashboards that he'd been trying to correct internally, but that leadership had pushed back. I want to believe that's not true, but I'd appreciate hearing directly from you. I stared at the message for a full minute. Miles wasn't just defending himself. He was seeding an entirely new narrative, one where we were the villains and he was the whistleblower. I called Mira. She answered on the second ring. He's claiming retaliation, I said. That we fired him because he was flagging ethical issues. Mira exhaled slowly. That's the blueprint. It's classic. If this goes to court, he's going to file under the Whistleblower Protection Act. If he makes it stick, we'll be the ones on defense. I said nothing for a while, just stared at the growing number of cracks in the structure I'd spent a decade building. I met with Evan again on Thursday. He came to our Charlotte office in person. He spread out a few printed screenshots on the conference table. Looks like Miles had been exporting client contact data from the CRM since August. Downloaded .csv files probably used burner email addresses routed through a VPN. But here's the thing. He flipped to another page. 3 clients received email pitches last month from a company calling itself Vector Integrity Partners. Same offer structure. Same pricing model. 2 responded. 1 signed. Who? I asked. Barton Kinley Financial, Evan said. The same group you onboarded last quarter. That was when the anger really hit. Miles hadn't just stolen data. He'd stolen momentum, pipeline, trust. He was building his new house from the bricks of mine. And now he was threatening to burn me down if I called him out. Mira scheduled a strategy meeting for Friday morning. We need to prepare for a dual-front situation, she said. 1. We quietly continue the forensic audit with Evan and Natalie. No public moves. No client notifications yet. 2. We prepare for a legal threat. Assume he's already drafting a wrongful termination and whistleblower retaliation claim. Gregory nodded. And if it goes public? Then we fight, Mira said. But only if we have the proof. I looked around the table at the people I'd trusted to help me build this company. I felt the weight settle in again. Not just fear or anger this time, but a colder truth. This wasn't going away quietly, and Miles Avon was only just getting started. The subpoena arrived the following Monday. A thick white envelope slid across Myra's desk, hand-delivered by a courier who looked like he'd walked straight out of an HBO courtroom drama. Clean shave, expensive shoes, expressionless. Inside, a formal notification of intent to file a wrongful termination lawsuit. Allegations included retaliation for protected whistleblower activity, breach of implied contract, defamation, negligent mismanagement of employee data. There was even a request for injunctive relief, essentially asking the court to block us from making any statements about Miles to clients or the press until the matter was resolved. Mira read through it silently. When she was done, she looked up and said, "He's playing the long game." "How bad is it?" I asked. "On optics? Very bad. On paper? Clever. The burden of proof is on us now." That same afternoon, Miles launched a personal LinkedIn post. "After 4 incredible years at Blue House Intelligence, I've chosen to step away due to concerns over internal practices I couldn't support. I've always believed in the ethical use of data. I know the future of analytics must be transparent and accountable." More soon. It got over 9,000 views in 24 hours. 2 of our clients liked it. One commented, "Mira called it pre-litigation theater. I called it betrayal in slow motion." Meanwhile, Evan kept digging. He called me late Tuesday night from his hotel room in Atlanta. "I found the data transfers," he said. "But more importantly, I found where they went." He forwarded a link to a secure cloud repository tied to a Gmail account registered under a fake name, but routed through a recovery email that belonged to Miles's personal domain. Rookie mistake. The folder included full client rosters, prospecting reports, deal funnels, and, this part made my stomach twist, a partially written proposal template addressed to 6 of our active clients, promising better rates and ethical transparency. But that wasn't the worst of it. "He's got one of your internal strategy decks," Evan added. "From last quarter, the one you only shared with executive staff." "How?" I asked, even though I already knew. Miles had attended that meeting, sat 5 feet from me, nodded along as we outlined our 2024 expansion roadmap, and then apparently walked straight out and uploaded it to his Ghost Drive. Thursday morning, I met with Dr. Harkness, our client from Ethon Care Medical, the one who'd emailed me about Miles's accusations. I didn't come to accuse, just clarify. "Camilla," I said over coffee, "I know Miles spoke to you recently. I want you to hear from me directly. He didn't leave for ethical reasons. He was terminated after we discovered what looks like unauthorized data transfers involving several client accounts, including yours." Her eyes narrowed. "That's not what he said." "I know." She paused. "Can you prove it?" I met her gaze. "We're building a case right now, but I wanted to give you the courtesy of transparency before the headlines start." Her voice softened slightly. "I appreciate that." Back at the office, Mira and Evan were finalizing a timeline of documented activity. August 11th. Miles downloads CRM contact logs. September 4th. First communication with Barton Kinley via an anonymized email address. October 19th. Internal pitch deck accessed and copied to unregistered device. November 3rd. Domain vectorintegrity.com registered through Icelandic DNS masking service. November 27th. Proposal sent to 3 active Blue House clients. December 1st. Miles requests broader CRM permissions citing client engagement optimization. December 14th. Cloud logs show mass export event. That night, Mira looked over the full file and said, "We're close, but not airtight." "What's missing?" "A smoking gun," she said. "Something that shows intent. Something he can't spin into misunderstanding." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice during our exit meeting. So calm, so rehearsed. And I realized something. He hadn't panicked when we confronted him. He'd been prepared. Like he knew we'd find the trail. Like he wanted us to. And if that was true, then the real trap hadn't been sprung yet. The letter from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission arrived on a Wednesday morning. Thick envelope. Government seal. No return address. Inside was a formal complaint. Miles Avon had filed a federal claim of retaliation and discrimination. The language was surgical. Mr. Avon alleges that he raised internal concerns regarding unethical data practices and was subjected to professional retaliation culminating in wrongful termination. He further asserts that his dismissal followed multiple incidents of discriminatory behavior and a hostile work environment, including targeted undermining based on age, political views, and ethical dissent. I handed the letter to Mira in silence. She read it once, then again slower. Hostile work environment, she murmured. That's new. He's not just claiming retaliation anymore. He's claiming protected whistleblower status with a civil rights overlay. And ageism? I asked. He's 34. Mira exhaled. That one's for flavor, not substance. But the rest is textbook. He's trying to make this unprovable. A battle of interpretations. By noon, we were in a war room. Mira, Gregory, Evan, and me. Evan projected his audit trail on a wall-mounted monitor. Color-coded timeline, access logs, IP traces, file movement. It looked damning, but Mira shook her head. In court, this will be labeled circumstantial. We can prove he took data, I said. Yes, she replied. But he'll say it was research, that he was building internal reports, that he feared internal fraud and was collecting evidence. If he claims he was protecting client interests, it muddies everything. I leaned forward. We have client poaching, proposal copies, our IP sitting on his server. Mira looked at Evan. Do we have proof he sent any of it? Evan hesitated. We know he downloaded. We know he created the proposal files. But we don't have email headers, delivery receipts, or acknowledgements. And he used a VPN for most outbound communication. Then in legal terms, Mira said flatly, we have smoke, not fire. That afternoon, Camilla Harkness forwarded me another email. Miles had followed up with her. Attached was a confidential report, entirely fabricated, claiming we'd been padding client usage metrics to overbill enterprise accounts. It looked legitimate at first glance. Had our logo, internal-looking file names. But it was bullshit. Miles had used our actual report formatting, but with data he invented. He was manufacturing a narrative. Not just that we fired him unjustly, but that he'd been trying to stop us from unethical practices. When I showed Mira, her face darkened. This is brilliant, she said. Legally despicable, but narratively airtight. If this leaks, we look like the villains, and he becomes the guy who got fired for doing the right thing. Even if it's fake? I asked. Especially if it's fake. You don't need truth for headlines. You need plausibility. Evan returned to his hotel to resume his deep dive. That night, he called me with something new. Dalton, he said, I've been digging into the metadata from the file miles sent to Camilla. Okay. It was created on a private machine. MacBook Pro. Serial tag ends in F48Y. That means something? Evan paused. That's not his work laptop. It's his personal laptop. The one he never logged into your systems with, but he used it to build this false report. I frowned. So we can prove he fabricated it. Almost. We just need to tie that machine to the file. But here's the kicker. He trailed off. What? That machine? Pinged your office Wi-Fi 3 months ago, twice. Once during a Saturday morning. I cross-referenced the MAC address with our archived network logs. I blinked. He brought it here? Yup. Into your building. Connected to the private guest network. Accessed Google Drive from there. Which means we can prove intentional misrepresentation using company resources. I finished. Exactly. It wasn't the smoking gun yet, but it was a glint in the chamber. We were getting close. The next day, Evan requested access to our archived camera footage from that Saturday. We still had it. The footage showed Miles walking into the building at 7:13 a.m. with 2 laptops. His work-issued one and his own. He stayed for exactly 2 hours and 12 minutes. That was the same window the metadata showed for file creation. I can timestamp it all, Evan said. The logins, the footage, the file creation. It's enough to make any falsification defense collapse in court. Myra's eyes lit up for the first time in days. This changes everything. But just as we started to breathe, Gregory walked into the conference room holding his phone. You're not going to like this, he said. He put the phone on the table. pressed play on a voicemail. Dalton, this is Rachel Glenn from the Tri-State Business Journal. We're running a story this week on the growing legal dispute between Blue House Intelligence and a former executive. We'd like a comment on allegations of whistleblower retaliation, ethical irregularities in your billing model, and whether your leadership team is considering internal reform. I didn't hear the rest. My blood went cold. Miles hadn't just set the trap. He'd already pulled the trigger. There's a specific sound your phone makes when you get 23 emails in under 2 minutes. It's not the ding that matters, it's the rhythm. Too fast for coincidence. Too clean for good news. At 9:47 a.m. on Friday, that sound echoed across my desk like incoming artillery. By 9:52, the story had gone live. Whistleblower claims data firm fired him for exposing client manipulation. Tri-State Business Journal, above the fold, right under a picture of me from a 2022 leadership summit. Cropped just enough to look smug. They used Miles's statement almost verbatim. I raised serious concerns about how client data was being shaped to fit revenue targets. I was told to stay in my lane. Then I was gone. I read the entire article in silence. No rebuttal. No mention of Evan's findings. No context. Just smoke. And in PR, smoke is enough to kill you. By 11 a.m., 3 clients had requested emergency calls. One was our largest healthcare partner. Another had paused all invoicing, pending internal legal review. By noon, a former employee had shared the article on Twitter, adding, "This tracks. I left for a reason." Her tweet got 14,000 impressions in 2 hours. I sat in my office staring at a company I could feel unraveling beneath me. Not from failure, not from fraud, but from a narrative I hadn't controlled. In the war room, Mira laid it out flat. We're outgunned. We don't control the optics. If we strike now with a countersuit, we look like we're retaliating again. If we wait, the media story becomes the truth. Gregory chimed in. I've spoken with our recruiter. We've already had 2 candidates withdraw citing reputational risk. I looked to Evan. How close are we to pinning it down? He was seated, head down over his laptop. Close, he muttered. But I need access to Miles's email archives. His personal Gmail, if we can crack it. We can't legally access that, Mira said. Not without a warrant or court order. Then we're stuck, I said. Mira leaned forward. Not stuck, just cornered. That evening, I went home and did something I hadn't done in months. I opened the drawer in my den where I kept a copy of my original business plan. The one I wrote in 2012, printed out, dog-eared, and highlighted with ambition. It had a mission statement at the top. I hadn't read it in years. To build data systems people trust enough to sleep at night. I sat in silence for a while. Then I picked up the phone and called Mira. I'm not settling, I told her. Not $1. Not a statement. Not a non-disclosure agreement. He stole from us. He lied. And now he's trying to rewrite reality. Dalton, she said carefully, we could bleed out in court. I'd rather lose the company telling the truth than keep it under a lie. There was a long pause. Then she said, then we fight. The next morning, Mira and I met with Tom Linford, a crisis PR strategist who had worked for a Fortune 100 bank during its SEC inquiry in 2018. He listened carefully, leafing through documents without blinking. Finally, he said, you have truth. You just don't have control of the narrative. Yet, what do we do? I asked. You don't respond emotionally. You don't deny. You reframe. You show your integrity not in your words, but in your actions. He leaned back. And then you expose him. That weekend, Mira filed a formal pre-litigation brief with the EEOC, countering Miles's claims with a timeline of internal investigations, audit findings, security breaches, and system activity logs. It was tight, factual, no adjectives, no spin. It didn't make headlines, but it didn't need to, because Monday morning, Evan called with a voice that was different, energized. Dalton, we've got him. He had found a Google Docs draft, left in an unprotected folder, written by Miles 6 weeks prior to his termination. The title? Transition Strategy, VIP Launch, post-Blue House move. It outlined his rollout timeline, targeted Blue House clients by name, and detailed pricing discounts designed to undercut current contracts by 10 to 15%. But that wasn't the best part. The document was shared with one person, his attorney. We had proof he'd planned to leave, poach, and undercut us weeks before his so-called whistleblower concerns were ever raised. We weren't just holding a smoking gun now. We were holding the entire security camera. Mira didn't speak for a full 10 seconds after reading the document Evan found. Then she exhaled through her nose, slowly, like a poker player about to call an all-in bluff. This changes the entire board. Because now it wasn't just what Miles had taken or how he'd lied, it was when. The document, VIP launch, post-Blue House move, had a creation date of October 4th. His EOC complaint, filed November 20th. His claim that we fired him in retaliation for whistleblowing, filed after he'd already planned to gut our client list and launch a direct competitor using our proprietary sales material. Intent, timeline, malice, and best of all, the document was shared with his attorney, which legally tied the strategy not just to Miles but to a formal plan of action. Mira wasted no time. She drafted a response to the EEOC complaint with an attached exhibit of the document, plus a new section, counterclaim notification, fraud and intentional interference with business relationships. We weren't just defending ourselves anymore. We were going on offense. That Monday, Myra's paralegal hand-delivered the brief to Douglas Raines, Miles's attorney, the same man who'd postured on live calls about ethical retaliation and civil rights violations. By Tuesday morning, we received an email from his office. Mr. Avon would like to resolve this matter privately. We are open to negotiation. I read it 3 times. I didn't respond. Meanwhile, Tom Linford, our crisis PR consultant, launched a controlled transparency campaign. We didn't deny anything. We didn't mention Miles by name. We simply published a white paper outlining Blue House's data handling ethics, audit process, and internal compliance reviews. Then Mira and I recorded a 3-minute video, firm, calm, honest. I looked into the camera and said, "We believe trust isn't built on silence. It's built on transparency. We've launched an internal investigation in light of recent events, and we're confident in our team, our process, and our integrity. We'll share what we find." The video didn't go viral. It didn't need to. It was watched quietly by the people who mattered, our clients. By Friday, 3 clients who had paused contracts resumed services. One sent a note, "Thank you for not panicking." It meant something. The wind was shifting, but we still needed to close the loop. Evan was on it. He traced metadata tags in the Google Doc draft to an IP address that matched a co-working space in Chattanooga, Tennessee, one that Vector Integrity Partners had briefly leased 2 months earlier. The lease? Signed by Miles Avon using his personal email. We had geolocation, network history, and time-aligned access records that placed Miles in that building while logged into the same Google Drive containing the stolen Blue House data. It was enough for Mira to prepare a formal civil suit for breach of fiduciary duty, theft of trade secrets, intentional interference, defamation, fraud, and best of all, we had grounds to file in federal court. On the following Monday at 9:04 a.m., Raines called Mira directly. "We'd like to avoid court. What would your client consider a fair resolution?" Myra's answer was short: restitution, full retraction, and a permanent injunction against using any Blue House proprietary materials. No negotiation. There was a long silence on the line. "That'll ruin him," Raines said. "He tried to ruin us," she replied. By Wednesday, Miles had withdrawn the EOC complaint. By Friday, we had a signed confidential settlement including a full retraction, repayment of legal fees, and a notarized statement acknowledging misrepresentation of facts in prior public statements. It wouldn't go viral. It wouldn't erase the mess. But it would end it. That night, I walked into my office alone. Same desk, same lamp, same framed mission statement. To build data systems people trust enough to sleep at night. I wasn't proud of what had happened, but I was proud that when the truth was tested, we didn't fold. We finished it. There's no victory parade for surviving betrayal. No applause. No champagne. Just silence and the slow process of rebuilding what someone else tried to hollow out from within. The week after the settlement was signed, Miles Avon disappeared from the professional world. His company website was taken down. His LinkedIn went private. No public statement, no apology, just a quiet exit from the battlefield he set on fire. But the damage lingered. We lost 2 clients permanently, not because they believed him, but because they didn't want to be anywhere near the noise. A few team members left, not out of distrust, just fatigue. They'd signed on to write code and manage dashboards, not navigate media narratives and lawsuits. And I understood that. 3 weeks later, I had lunch with Dr. Camilla Harkness. She picked the place, a quiet cafe in Charlotte, where no one wore suits and no one cared about headlines. She looked me in the eye and said, "He almost had me, you know. I believed him, because he looked like someone who believed himself." I nodded. "That's what scared me most," I said. "He didn't just fake the story. He rehearsed it. He lived it." She stirred her coffee. "Makes you question who you can trust. Every day." But then she added, "What matters is what you did next." Back at the office, things started to settle. Evan returned to Denver. Mira went back to corporate contracts and mergers. Gregory, bless him, finally took a vacation. First one in 4 years. As for me, I came in every day. Same desk. Same black coffee. Fewer illusions. And one new item on the wall behind me. A framed, single-page document. The opening paragraph from our EOC rebuttal, the sentence that turned the case. Mr. Avon's claims of whistleblower retaliation were made after documented evidence shows he had launched a competing company using confidential Blue House intelligence data. He was not punished for exposing wrongdoing. He was caught committing it. It's not there to gloat. It's there to remember. Because here's the truth they don't teach in leadership books. Sometimes the people you mentor will use what you gave them to tear you apart. Sometimes loyalty is just a phase. And sometimes protecting your integrity means walking through fire with everything you've built strapped to your back. But even after all that, even after the clients we lost, the media storm, the meetings with lawyers, the sleepless nights, I'd still rather build something real in a dishonest world than lie to survive in a false one. That's the trade. And for me, it's still worth it.